Okay, so welcome to Leadership Live. I'm really excited to have a special guest with us today, Dr. Ilan Samish, CEO and founder of Amai Proteins, an Israeli food tech startup that has developed the first sugar substitute that tastes just like sugar by redesigning sweet proteins found in the jungle and producing them for mass consumption. As an expert in computational protein design and genetics with a stellar academic career, he followed his heart and passion, moving into the startup world with a mission of helping wean the world off its addiction to sugar. And I know we're going to be talking a lot about that and kind of what led you there. I'm curious to find out. But let's just also add that prior to founding Amai, Ilan had an academic career as a researcher, a lecturer, and also a journalist. So lots of different things, lots of different transitions. Ilan founded the Frontiers in Science meetings at the Davidson Institute of Science Education and gave courses on computational biology, the human love machine, psychobiology, and more. He's a regular contributor in the local media as well. Ilan is father of 2 adult kids and a baby. So baby was born on the 2nd of October this year. Adult daughter married on the 9th of October. So some celebrations mixed with everything that happened in October for us in Israel over here. Also, you own a dog, a guinea pig, and a lesser known fact about Ilan is that he is a flamenco dancer.
Very amateur.
That's impressive. I mean, when I was reading through your bio and preparing for this podcast, I was just impressed with many, many facets to you. I mean, you even sent me a picture of yourself with a parrot and a cat, so animal lover for sure. I'm just really excited to have you on the show, and I'm really excited to see where our conversation will lead us, because I just know you have so much wisdom and so many stories to share with us today. So welcome.
Not sure about wisdom, but definitely a lot of stories.
Well, I believe that stories bring their own wisdom, because actually, I think our experiences through stories are what help us to grow and become who we are in this world. So yay for stories. So I'd love to, actually, before we start, I'm newly doing this thing where I have a surprise box of 10 questions. So if you can choose a number between 1 and 10, and let's see what question you get, just that we can get to know you with a slightly different and interesting question. Okay, let me have a look. What is an unconventional skill you've developed that has surprisingly served you well in your leadership journey?
So actually, I think journalism.
Okay.
I was 18 years in academia, and I have when there is fake news, it doesn't make me happy. Within the Weizmann Institute, I went to the Davidson Center for Science Education, where they got some students, paid them very small pocket money. I never really made money out of it, in order to write some stuff for the media. I wrote probably 100 different articles and went to all the media, TV, radio stations, and so on. Somehow one thing led to another. And I learned that knowing science and communicating science is 2 very different things. Just as an anecdote, my first, and then I also did popular science talks. Chaim Harari is the former president of the Weizmann Institute, and then chair of the global fund of the Weizmann Institute of quite a few billions. He also founded what is called in Israel Perach, which is students that volunteer in the community. And he thought that you need to get off the ivory tower and get to the people. So they asked me to lead the first round of this, and we did 5 courses in parallel. And my first talk was affinity and specificity in protein-protein interactions. I still think this is one of the most amazing topics. However, some of the audience, including some young retired people, did not think so, and even one of them in the middle began to snore, and I was so offended what to do. And For me, it was one of my best learning experiences because I took 5 slides out, I put 5 new slides in, I changed a few titles, and I called the talk, "How Does Viagra Work?"
Now you got people interested, right?
But the audience became much more erect, and they began to enjoy it more, and I learned a very important lesson on marketing. It was still
I love
a
it.
very scientific talk about affinity and specificity in protein-protein interactions in small molecules, and I worked on sildenafil sulfate, which you may know as Viagra, and on phosphodiesterase 2 and 5, which are the proteins in which it interacts. But I really learned that communicating science and doing science is not the same thing. And today, whether it is fundraising or whether it is working with an amazing but very multidisciplinary team that we have, I think this is a skill that at the time I did not know how important it is, and also how much it's not common.
Yeah. So that's interesting, the link to journalism there, because I'm making a connection. My background is in actuarial science. I was an actuary before I did this work in executive and CEO leadership coaching. And they introduced, while I was doing all those exams, they have a whole lot of exams that we have to write, which are professional exams around the areas of expertise. They introduced a new exam called the communication exam. And what they did was they asked us a question which totally related to some actuarial concept that we had to give an answer. They were asking as if a layperson is posing this question to us, and we needed to learn how to respond in a way that was not filled with actuarial jargon and terminology and, deep explanations of mathematical models. We needed to explain it in simple, everyday language. And I think that very much relates to what you're saying here, because communication is a vital skill for leaders and for experts who become leaders. And this is something that I actually talk about a lot, and it's part of the area that I work with, is the transition from being an expert to being a leader, because you've got to bring in all your stakeholders and be able to communicate in a way that really draws them in and doesn't help them to fall asleep, Yeah, excellent story. I love that. So I'd love to know what started you on this journey to find a sugar substitute specifically.
So I have here a book. This is a book called Computational Protein Design, which I happened to publish. And I was in a career that one thing led to another. I don't have a bachelor degree, which in many ways is more descriptive characteristic of me than my later career in academia. I studied in the Lautman interdisciplinary program for fostering the excellence in the Tel Aviv University, where the main idea is to study something that is not part of a regular curricula. So I studied in 5 different faculties, and then went to the Weizmann Institute. And I said, I'll go to any important scientific question except plant sciences, because I'm not interested in engineering a straight banana. I'm quite happy with the curved one. I ended up doing my master's and PhD in plant sciences, because in photosynthesis, which is harvesting light and making, at the end of the day, sugar out of it, making energy out of it, which is stored in sugar, is the model, because it has a green color of plants, to membrane proteins which lie in the interface between the cell and the outside. And half of the drugs are against such proteins, and these are unknown. And I asked, how come you have life on one hand in Antarctica, on the other hand in hot boiling springs in Yellowstone, both doing photosynthesis, and how does it adapt to different such conditions? And I succeeded to design the protein to work in the entire cell in a much higher temperature. And postdocing with a guy, Bill DeGrado, he was then in UPenn, now he's in UCSF, who invented the field of protein design. I continued to work on the field, and then I noticed that there are very few labs who each one does their own thing, and nobody compare them. And I was, as an intelligence officer, I was like, what's the difference between the different algorithms? It's very hard to compare them because each one is working in a different case study. So I actually did it, and there are 12 pages of a table comparing all the successful designs. And one of the things I noticed on page 83 of my book is a table that very few people are succeeding to do it, and they're all in academia. And then I thought, well, you have so many amazing functionalities of proteins in the wild, and they're not fit for the harsh conditions of biotechnology, especially in food. And I can do it. Now, because I was in my career, I also there was a lack of a meeting on the functional side of structural biology, computational structural biology. I founded what became the main meeting in computational structural biology in the world, and I knew about sweet proteins, and I asked, how come you're not making them fit to the mass food market? And then after finishing the book, I decided suddenly that academia is not interesting because another scientific paper is not so interesting. Very few people will read it, and I think I can make a much bigger impact. As a kid, I'm a twin. My twin sister always ate less than me and became less slim than I was. I was not enough weight. She was a little bit too much, and we each one were in the shade of the other. It went both ways. So sugar reduction in diet was very much in my blood, literally. Wow. And I thought there was here a chance to do something. I left academia. My parents and many others thought I'm totally lunatic. And maybe a 40-something-year-old guy with some life crisis. And I simply, for a few months, worked at home. At some point, I got crazy at home. I asked my PhD advisor at the Weizmann Institute to give me to sit in a chair in his lab just to be surrounded by people. I studied the field, and the more I studied, I asked myself, how come I didn't get it? How come nobody did it? Oh. And I decided to do it. And now we are 8 years later, and we are launching this in the next month or two. We are launching our product.
Amazing. Good luck with that. But there are so many elements of your story that are interesting, and I'd love to pick up on because it's not a straight line. So what I'm hearing is that actually somewhere it began in your childhood with having your experience with your twin sister, where the question of how much are we eating, and I'm gathering that for you it was, Ilan, we need you to put on weight, and for your sister it was, we need you to lose weight. So that conversation around food and weight was something that was very present for you. And then, go ahead.
Was definitely a very, very central part of my childhood.
Wow.
Not eat ice cream except if I went to the doctor, and even then I couldn't tell my twin sister that I ate ice cream so she won't be envious. And
so eating ice cream, getting the ice cream was a kind of a reward for going to see the doctor for that horrible doctor's visit?
It was a reward, but I felt guilt. I mean, love sugar. Sugar activates the pleasure centers of nucleus accumbens in your brain, just like coffee and heroin and sex and a few other things. And yet you feel guilt.
So it was a guilty pleasure. And that you weren't allowed to share with your sister. You had to keep it a secret because she wasn't going to be getting the ice cream.
And you say obesity is in your mind, it's not in your belly. And I'm definitely with a mind of someone obese.
Wow. What does that mean?
That you're very much minded into the guilt part of the pleasure.
Okay.
As a kid, I didn't feel comfortable that I'm enjoying ice cream and twin sister is not, and you have a lot of guilt.
Yeah. So the whole mindset around food, eating, what's good for you, the guilt, what is right, what isn't right, not telling, all of that, is all part of your upbringing. And fascinating that it led to where you are today, which is the work with Rousseau. There's clearly a connection. But I'm also fascinated with what you said about you don't have a first degree. So clearly you didn't do the conventional route of here's what I want to go into. It sounds like it wasn't a conscious choice. This was my experience in childhood, so I'm going to go into it. It somehow evolved because you didn't even want to go into plant, what did you call it, plant synthesis research. And then that's exactly where you landed at. It's fascinating how the world kind of conspired or led you on this path, even though there were a lot of, offshoots.
Definitely not conventional. You can call it colorful, you can call it unique, you can call it weird, you can call it nonconformist, but I'm definitely did things my own way along the way. Don't have many that from the amateur dancing of flamenco to other things I did along the way. I had my own way of things, and I always looked on what's the next step, which is interesting, and not what is just inertia that will lead you from one thing to another.
Any regrets? Anything you would have liked to do differently if you look back?
I'm someone who tries to look in the present and future and less about the past, but definitely there were a few roads not taken that post factum maybe I should have taken, but this is all sunk cost. In Israel, they tried to make a jet plane, the Levi, and at some point they understood that Israel simply doesn't have the resources and it's too much of a burden. And then they laid off all the people who worked on this amazing project of the Israeli aircraft industry. And a lot of these people later sparked and ignited the startup industry because a lot of very, very talented people came out. Likewise was all of the immigrants that came from Russia and other places. So I look on the past as sunk cost, and I really try to focus on.
Right. Exactly. It's the learnings. It's what did you get from it, and the experiences that you've gathered along the way that have got you to where you are today, which is absolutely incredible, pioneering this field of, the protein-based sweetener. I'm curious, just very quickly, if you can explain, and not too technically, what is the difference between your sweetener and other sweeteners on the market at the moment? What is the innovation here?
So if you look on sweeteners, it's a $90 billion market, of which 90% is sugar and high fructose corn syrup, which is even worse than sugar.
Yeah.
It was only in 2017, after I already opened the mind, that the scientific community concluded, following what's called the PURE study, 350,000 people that were studied 7 years in very big detail, that sugar is public enemy number one. It's not the new tobacco, but it's actually much worse than tobacco because it underlies a metabolic syndrome, obesity, diabetes, epithelial cancers, not to mention mental disease, tooth decay, and many other ailments. So while you have sugar, which is known to be bad, and high fructose corn syrup, which is even worse, and you can listen to the podcast of Robert Lustig, the Professor Robert Lustig is a pediatric endocrinologist who is the number one scientist on this. You really have no alternatives because the diet market, despite the fact that it exists for many years, it simply doesn't work. Number one, it's not tasty, and taste is the king. Number two, it's not healthy. The World Health Organization few months ago just put out a general advisory about all high-intensity sweeteners, and the diet market, you have low intensity and high intensity. High intensity is 90% of the sugar reduction sweeteners, and they're simply not better in fighting the metabolic syndrome. And today, a diet drink is not so good for you according to the World Health Organization. Aspartame got a special warning, but also the rest, sucralose, saccharin, aspartame, K, stevia. Stevia is natural, but it's not good for you, and it's not so tasty. Now, all of these are small molecules. All of these are molecules that when you swallow them, they continue to be sweeteners. They continue to interact with a sweet receptor which lines our gut. They continue to interact with a microbiome, the kilogram of bugs we have in our digestive tract. We have the same number of cells, of human cells and microorganism cells in our body. It continues often to be digested by the liver and excreted by the kidneys. On the other hand, proteins are a very different thing. We need proteins. Actually, our genome has 20,000 genes. Each gene will code for one protein. So our body knows how to make about 20,000 different proteins. Obviously, the different protein will be expressed in our eye, our ear, or our digestive tract. And we need to make these proteins. Those are chains of pearls called amino acids. We have 20 types of such pearls. 9 of them we cannot make ourselves. We need to consume them by food. So our body is optimized to digest proteins and chop them quickly into amino acids, which they're made of. So consequently, when you eat a protein sweetener, it will be quickly digested to amino acids. Consequently, it will not continue to be a sweetener when it's body, and then it's not expected to have the adverse effects like small molecules.
Oh, wow. So it's actually good for you, you're saying, in terms of how the body digests.
Yes, but I need here to put a
caveat.
Because you have 200 different sweet proteins, out of which you have 7 hypersweet proteins. And these proteins are so sweet. We are working with a protein which on average is 3,000 times sweeter than sugar.
Wow.
Consequently, the amount is so small, we replace a teaspoon of sugar with 1 or 2 milligrams of the protein, or a kilogram of the protein is equal to 3 tons of sugar. Consequently, we don't really give a nutritional value.
Oh, okay.
The amount is so minuscule. And this is a 0-calorie or non-nutritive protein, just because the amount is so small.
So it's tasty, it's 0 calorie, it's not harmful to your health, and it's also sustainable from what we've spoken about before. So okay, lovely. Well, thank you. And it's about to be launched soon.
Definitely sustainable. Sugar is not only bad for the health of our people, it's also bad for the health of our planet. Every kilogram of sugar, you need 200 liters of water. You transport 180 million tons of sugar, a huge carbon footprint. You grow sugar plantations in a size bigger than the UK. A lot of herbicides, pesticides, contamination of air, land, and sea. So it's really getting in deforestation, affecting the lower socioeconomic class. So we won in 2022 the Extreme Tech Challenge, 2,000 startups, the world's most known and biggest startup competition. It has 4 criteria: market disruption, fitness to market, team, and impact as quantitatively measured by the 17 Sustainability Development Goals of the United Nations. And we became first place.
Congratulations, that's awesome.
Bill Gates and Young Sons as a former president of Samsung and many others. And as they said, unlike other companies that struggle, which SDG, the 17 UN Sustainability Development Goals, is relevant, in our case, the question is which one is not relevant. So definitely we hope we grow the protein using yeast. So it's just like a brewery. It's called precision fermentation. The word precision is because we add a layer of harvesting. So the yeast excretes the protein to the media. We then separate the media from the yeast, just like you do with filtered beer. And then we simply filter out the protein, we spray dry it. And then at the end of the day, our business is to sell a white powder, which makes people happy.
That's not addictive, right?
Not addictive, it will still make you happy, but we hope it's not addictive.
That is everyone's dream, right? And legal, not addictive and legal.
And even kosher and halal.
Oh, amazing.
And cheaper than sugar, because we are so potent, each kilogram needs to be cheaper than 3 tons of sugar.
Wow.
So actually cheaper than sugar.
Amazing. Okay, so I want to go into maybe a bit of a heavier topic, and that's the 7th of October and the war that started in Israel and that horrible day of the massacre. And I know that your company has been hugely impacted. So I want to ask you a little bit about that. Tell us, I know, the loss of your lead researcher, Dr. Lilia Gurevich-Vasilovsky, was a huge loss, and employees who are sitting with hostages that are still in Gaza, and we are now 4.5 months in, 19th of February is when we were recording this. Staff on military duty, families of people on military duty, and this is all happening in your company, in your business. So tell us a little bit about that and the impact.
This was definitely a huge turning point in our nation, in our company, and in me personally. I was, since February, exactly a year ago, quite active in what is now called a protest, although I'm one that went, and it's not something about left and right, it's something, and I was active in the religious democratic Zionists and Brothers and Sisters of Arms, and in the high-tech forum. I've been quite a few times in the Knesset, in our parliament, never been there before. But in February, a year ago, I spoke there in the Legislative and Constitutional Legal Committee in a speech that became very viral. And then on October 2nd, my daughter was born.
Wow.
October 6, 23 was 50 years to the Yom Kippur Wars, the Day of Atonement.
Right.
In 73, when my dad went and came back only half a year later. He was fighting in Sinai, and left twins with my mother. Mm-hmm. I went that day to our Minister of Defense, to his home, and gave a speech with my dad. Actually, I brought him, saying we have so many warnings. It's just like before the Yom Kippur War, and then the next day this happened.
Wow.
And it was a really surreal week, because 2 days later, my daughter got married.
Wow. So she still went ahead with the wedding, because I know a lot of weddings and celebrations.
The wedding was supposed to be in a celebration hall. It was moved to the shelter.
Right. For security reasons as well.
She married someone from there. Very surreal. The guy who made the ceremony, many rabbis, top rabbis came, but the guy who made the ceremony came from Be'eri with his very close family, and he led the ceremony. And
Be'eri, just to say, because we have a lot of global listeners, is one of the communities that were attacked on the 7th of October and suffered massive, massive losses, hostages, murders, and all those other atrocities. So Be'eri was in the heart of everything that happened.
The communities that suffered the most and had fights also after October 7th. And I mean, he came from there because it was close relatives, according to Judaism, and my daughter was religious, so let alone you don't delay a wedding. But planned, but you can move it from a celebration hall to a shelter in a yeshiva in a learning. So it was really a very special day. And the next day they found the body burnt and not much to find DNA of Dr. Lilia Gurevich-Vasilovsky that led our molecular biology and was very pivotal here in Amai. And we have 4 employees who still have abducted hostages in Gaza, 6 who went to reserve duties, 9 who have either kids or spouses in emergency reserve duty. So really it affected all of us tremendously.
Yeah.
And it was a turning point. And for me, I felt like for the first time, I cannot do it alone. And our VP of People and Impact, Anat Serber, she did an amazing job, well beyond her job description, bringing in professional support also. But some people said they don't want to talk with the people we brought, the social workers, and he said, it's up to you, but maybe you want just to listen. And they said, okay. And those actually spoke the most and understood then that we are all in the same boat. And we all have the same mixture of shame and anger and sadness and fear and anxiety. We did have a few employees that we paid for emergency mental support.
Because I have to say, at that time, we were a country in trauma. So also to understand that the 7th of October massacre happened, but there was a war on from that moment, and still having to secure those areas. So a lot of families didn't know what was going on with their family members, and everybody was hit by this trauma. So absolutely essential to bring in that kind of emotional, psychological support. And fascinating also to hear what you're saying, people who said, no, we don't need it, because I think there is a mechanism in us. Some of us will, feel it and panic and get anxious and fall apart. And some of us will say, no, I can carry on and just keep on going. And yet everybody needs it. We're all realizing we're all in the same boat means we all need support. And we, in whatever way that looks for us, that something needs to be done.
Yes, and this was group dynamics, which really changed here things. We were 2 days, we were not in the office, actually, and on Saturday of October 7th, Dr. Chagai Shmueli, the director of biotechnology, came here to kill the fermentations. I used it for 24/7. From here, he went directly to the hospitals and to the morgues to look for his relatives. He had two.
So the processes had to be stopped immediately?
We cannot, without watching them 24/7, we cannot continue. And we stopped the process. Each one is a few days, 5 days or so. And we stopped it. And from there, he went to look for his relatives, and 2 relatives. One kid already came back, and one adult is still in Gaza. And then 2 days we were at home. The 3rd day, we told people we urge you to come back, but if you cannot, then don't. We also have some people who were evacuated and people who could not come for all kinds of reasons. But after 3 days, we came back, and then the next day, already everyone came back, everyone who could. And something changed also in the company. And we said, we deliver no matter what. And something about the groupness and the fact that we are one entity together, proving that no matter what we deliver, and we have a shelter, a secure room that we did use. We did have here sirens. We heard a lot of booms of the missiles coming at us. We had here very nearby a electric power that was hit by a missile, and we didn't have power for quite a few hours. I mean, we were around the missile, and still we came here, and people actually thanked us for doing this, because they said coming here is coming back to normal life and not being in panic at home. And having that sense of purpose. It's having, I guess, also being part of a team. You're all working towards something that you're trying to create, and together, being together and with a sense of purpose actually helps to maintain some sense of maybe routine. I can't say normalcy, because I think there's nothing normal about the situation, but some kind of something that we know, holding on to what we know and what gives us a sense of purpose and the ability to carry on. Definitely, it gave a lot of purpose. With 24/7 shifts, we had some of the students who do some of the night work in reserve duties, and people from myself to all the others came overnight, weekend, to make sure we continue to work and continue to do things. Some people, something unique about our R&D is we have 3 departments which are very, very different from each other. One is AI, CPD, computational protein design. Those are computer whizzes and computational biology. You enter the room, they're like this, working with cloud computing and so on. And then you have the biotechnology, and then you have the food technology, actually making foods and checking. And the food technologists and the computational protein design folks helped the biotechnology and began to work in the fermentation because we needed people there, and that was a point. And people moved around and happily helped each other. From the other side, of course, we the family of Lilia Gorevich-Vasilkovsky, who was murdered, slaughtered. We became part of their family, including she left behind two twins, first grade. So we went to them more than once, and we had here a big event with a memorial book and a lot of activities also for the kids and the others. And this the memorial of her became important. We decided not to bring a substitute to replace her. And what we did is we took all of the people who have knowledge in molecular biology, and we brought her team in several times, including someone from outside that just came as an advisor. It was funny because the number of PhDs was bigger than the number of employees, but made them feel, which it's not made them feel, it's actually what it is, how important they are, and the fact that they have support. And now without, like in the military, when the commander goes, you still continue. And they continued, they presented to us, and we gave a little bit of input, but most of it was just embracing what they do and telling them to continue with what they are doing. So definitely a time of transformation, a time of feeling that people deliver beyond what they usually do.
Amazing. They just stepped up. They really stepped up.
Totally.
I'm curious about how or what needed to change in you as a CEO, all of a sudden facing this crisis. Never mind that at home, it's this mixture of new baby, daughter getting married, terrible losses, crisis in the company. What did you need to step into as CEO?
From my point of view, there were two words: let go.
Okay.
It was the first time, including in things where in the past I was very much into the details. I don't believe in micromanagement, but I'm not only the CEO, I'm also the main
researcher, of course.
I lead also the science. We don't have a CTO. I simply let go and told people, I trust you, you do what you think. And I cannot be in all the details, and I don't want to be, because every artist have their own shades and colors, and people really took it and really stepped up, and I just needed not to interfere.
Amazing. I mean, probably an extreme example of something that pushes you into this place of letting go and trusting your people and relying on their knowledge and expertise, which is a lesson in leadership for everyone. For every CEO needs to learn that, especially coming from that kind of expert background. And you're kind of really pushed into that, realizing you can't do this alone.
In many ways, our VP of People and Impact became the CEO in many ways, and the leaders of the R&D departments became
Amazing. And I also remember hearing you say that I think you hired your VP of People and Impact when you were a company of 10 people. So very early on, you created this position and realized or knew that you needed to hire someone to fill it.
Yes. So this is something that the board did not tell me to do, and even some people in the board
and usually gets delayed for a bit later on. You know, you want to grow the business, you kind of manage it on your own for a while. So I think that's pretty impressive.
I see my job as someone who de-risks the risk factors of the company. We're a startup. We're a startup, and a startup it takes money from, whether it's in the beginning, the Israel Innovation Authority and grants, and then equity investors. And the idea is to de-risk it and make the company succeed. And every day I look at the risk factors in the mirror and I say, how can I focus on each risk factor and one at a time and de-risk it to the best of our ability with our very limited, always limited resources. And at some point I said, the uniqueness of Amai on one hand is computational protein design, but on the other one, which is in many ways more important, is a multidisciplinarity and the need to integrate so many disciplines. And with the really amazing team that we have, people who are already leaders in so many places, there is ego and there's also very different cultures of very different people, because we need a critical mass in computational protein design and biotechnology, split to 5 different units, and in food technology, and then you have regulation and IP and so on. And if this is such a risk factor, and if according to statistics, 40% of all startups do not succeed, fail, I'm hesitant whether to say the word fail, because of the people interactions, then let's look on this risk factor straight on and bring an expert, an expert who did shadowing of managers with not only recruitment, because that's the easy part, but working as a whole. And for that, we brought in a pretty young stage, Anat, in order to help in this. And
amazing.
The company, including myself.
Amazing. And you needed it. You really, really needed it in this last few months. Okay, so I have a question for you, which I think I'm curious about, and I think our listeners will be curious about as well. And that is, you have really made, and as I say, this is a subject that I speak about a lot, but you've made the transition from expert. You're a scientist, you're a researcher, you're a lecturer in university writing papers and books on things that I cannot probably even pronounce. So you made that transition from being an expert to being a founder, a CEO, and an innovator, starting and building something very tangible from scratch. So what were the key lessons that you learned in that transition?
First of all, I see that it's not such a big transition.
Okay.
When you go to science, you have 2 types of scientists. Both of them are equally important. You have scientists which are more on the technical route, doing something that others already did, applying it to a new case study, but and you have then the scientists that are more general problem solvers, that are innovative, that are out of the box thinkers, that are risk takers, and that try to solve complex, new, big problems. This is what I'm doing as a founder and CEO. So yes, I'm talking now much more with my CFO, with lawyers, with patent attorneys, with people who are less science. But at the end of the day, in all cases, this is problem solving. This is resource allocation to best solve the problem. And the problem is not just to get the best variant. We are now launching a variant that is fit for 2/3 of the market. We have already a new one that will also be fit for oven applications. That's the first one to go to the market. But this is not important. The important thing is to bring this to the market and to do it in a very global way.
Right.
I had the option to open Amai within the Weizmann Institute. I thought science is not my bottleneck. On the other hand, product and coming to the market is where I need more help. So I went to the kitchen, the food tech incubator. At the time, it was the only incubator on food in Israel, one of 19 incubators of the Israel Innovation Authority, a government authority that does a private government joint venture. And the Strauss Group that owns this incubator brought to me their 2 partners, PepsiCo and Danone. And my first signed fee-bearing agreement was with Danone, and then PepsiCo, and then others, Ocean Spray and others. And that's solving problems. So it's maybe less scientific, but it's still, for me, in essence, the same thing.
And a broader look, I would say, just a broader look. Whereas, if you're within your scientific field solving problems, you'll be kind of more narrowly focused on that. Would you say?
I don't know what's narrow and what's not narrow.
Yeah, okay.
As someone who doesn't have a bachelor degree and studied in many in many different faculties. The graduate Lautman program, interdisciplinary program for fostering excellence. Some people say they know everything and nothing. Others say they know nothing and everything. So it's not a regular route of some of the scientists that narrow to a very tiny problem. But definitely, I'm all the time playing with zooming in and zooming out, and playing with also time management. Where do I put my most precious resource, which is time? And definitely that's something which is a daily struggle. One of the things I brought at some point pretty early is Shira Kadar-Levy, our office manager, who helps me in time management and in taking away a lot of stuff that she's better than me in doing, of whether it's scheduling or whether it is flight or whether it is other administrative work, which is not administration. It's a framing of what I do and putting me on where I can be the most of help.
Yeah, those are some really good actually areas to think about, because these are things that you need to be able to hand over, have the support of your team, and really be able to then lead your business. Okay.
HR and administrative assistants are two things which not enough founders and CEOs are taking in and they see it, administrative assistant, as something which is a privilege. No, it's not, because then you have more time to do what you know to do. And
exactly,
likely someone else can do it in a better way than you. And she's definitely one of our smartest 100%. And trustworthy employees.
Yeah, it's a lever that allows you to leverage your time better. And I share with you the number of times I've had to really strongly suggest and advise that it's time to hire an office manager or an admin assistant or someone to take those things. Yes, you can do them, and it's very easy for you to do it, and it's quick, but it's where your energy and time goes that is just not very effective. So I think that's good advice. Okay, I think we've had an amazing conversation and we're coming to a close. So for me, there's a question that I do, which is a rolling question. So my previous guest leaves a question for my next guest to answer without knowing who they are or anything about them. So here's your question from our previous guest, Julia Lessing. And she's an actuary, actually, that is also working in the area of developing leaders and managers. And her question is this: if you had a magic wand and you could change anything about, and I'm going to leave this one open, actually, because it could be like leadership or your business, but actually I want to leave it open. So if you had a magic wand and you could change anything about the world today, what would you change?
Wow, that's it's like a Miss Universe general question.
No. So let's make it about your world. About your world.
In my world.
Not like theoretical. I want peace, and we know that.
I think that mediation and less extremism and fact-based education. I strongly believe in data-driven science education decisions, from just bank to fast food to the Arab-Israeli conflict. I think that not enough facts, not enough talks are done, and there are too many things which there is a conversation of hatred without understanding things. And in the last year, I became active in the national level. And after, 50 speeches in every possible stage, from talking to 100,000 people to talking to less, to talking in the government, I felt like the place where I made the biggest impact is when I went to the extreme rabbis of the other side, including in Hebron and other places, and spoke with them for 2-3 hours and heard their pain points, and they listened to ours. And things then changed, because it's not that later they will vote for the same party I will, or vice versa, but some of the extremism went down. And I think that such conversations you don't have enough. And I think that too many decisions are made without knowing the real data, and without understanding what the other side thinks, whether it's an enemy or someone with different.
So I want to question the data or the fact-based, because I think that it's very unclear. We don't always know the facts, or we're not even going to agree on the facts. And sometimes the facts are not known enough. It's just not that black and white. This is right and this is wrong. Not even you're right and I'm wrong. It's this is correct. This is a correct fact. I don't know that we always have enough information to really be able to say that. But what you're actually highlighting is the ability to really listen and to really connect and to want to understand someone who sits in a very different place of understanding facts, let's say, than you. And when you're able to do that, I think that can really change the world.
I strongly believe in it. I believe that for me, it was the first time going to Hebron, which is maybe the most extreme settlement, with a rabbi there that leads many people, and hear him that he didn't go out of his community, but I also didn't go out of my community to listen to him. And I think it mellowed down some of the beliefs on both sides.
Right.
And me,
conversation.
Moving the needle in all of what I did, this is a place where I feel like I did the most.
Amazing. What is your magic wand wish for your business? Let's just say, because I know you're on the threshold of a launch and it's, going to be great. So what is your magic wand wish for your business, for Amai?
When you go to the army or to any other organization, if you want to be a platoon leader or a chief of general staff or a brigade commander, it's not the same route. I did not take the easy, quick route. I could have already, quite a few years ago, sell the company, make money, buy my own home. I still don't have my own, and live in maybe a higher lifestyle, but this is not my motivating factor. I really think that we have now something that can save so many lives, irrespective of country, gender, race, and so on. And I would really like to see within very few years around the world that there is less of the metabolic syndrome, that the consumption of sugar is going down, and that we are succeeding to bring a lot of volume. We are not looking for the premium market, we're looking for volume. The ones who suffer by the way the most from sugar are the hot Muslim countries. We're working with countries in the Gulf in order to, through them, also bring this to them. And I would really like to see less people who have the guilt and have the obesity and have the shortened and less quality of life because of sugar consumption.
Thank you. Thank you, Ilan. I think what I love about our whole conversation is that you are driven by such a sense of purpose and mission to make the world a better place. And whether it's through Amai, which is really your main activity, there's also so much around the bringing people together and the conversations and going out and creating connections and really listening and understanding. Also the support, the personal support that you've shown, within your business, to your staff, to your team, the appreciation, all of that comes through in our whole conversation. And I just really want to appreciate that so much. So thank you for being here. It's been absolutely delightful.
I really appreciate. I'm not sure if I'm giving support or they give me support, but it's definitely a team effort and we're all together on this. And we feel like we're doing something good, and that's an amazing feeling.
Yeah, it is. It is. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here.
Bye.